Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Well, I'm an alcoholic. My name's Gil. I want to thank Mike asking me to speak here and believing in me and my recovery. And welcome any newcomers to Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the last stop. This is it. I don't go no place else. And express my gratitude to the alcoholics that were in AA before I got here and made ready a room for me to recover in, somewhat just like this one. It reminds me of my first meeting in a church just like this with a roll-up window, like where the coffee pots are. So I'm at home. It's an honor and a privilege to share my experience, strength, and hope. You know, I'm not here to tell you how to get sober or why you should be sober. All I have is what's been working for me. And that I believe rarely have we seen a person fail that has followed the path of the others. And you're fortunate. You know, I got sober on the East Coast, New Jersey. And almost 5 years ago, I moved out here. So you're going to get a little East-West Coast blend of recovery. Aren't you lucky? And congratulate the CHIP people. And happy birthday to the birthday people. And the Al-Anons. Welcome. And I have my 90-day pin on. That I missed it the first trip around. And the thing at the meeting was they told everybody you got to get a sponsor so that they can give you your pin when you have 90 days. So I didn't know. I picked out a guy, you know, and just to give me my pin, but he had already taken me to my first meeting. And the pin is very significant. The triangle and the G on top is God, and the AA down on the other points, Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's a dot in the middle. And they used to say, and the dot in the middle is you. And if you keep one hand on AA and one hand on God, you won't pick up a drink. And they didn't lie. I moved out here 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. 11 and a half years sober. And my second wife left me for the second time. She couldn't take a joke. And I lost the business. And the IRS confiscated money out of my checking account. And I had some trucks repossessed. I was in the heating and cooling business at one time on the East Coast. So there I was at about 10 and a half years sober, and marriage coming apart, business folding, and I kept going to meetings, working with other alcoholics, telling everybody where I was at. And I said, that's it, I'm going to California. I had enough. So I took this geographical cure. And this guy Marty hooked me up with a guy named Andy the Alcoholic in Redondo Beach, and what a place to stay. And you know, I really wanted to come out here and sit on my pity pot, go to the beach, and you know, do the poor me's. And I didn't know these guys took me to 3 meetings a day, for the 10 days I stayed here. And in the course of that, AA boy met AA girl on AA campus, and there was this redhead kept crossing my path, and I met her at the fruit table at another meeting, There she is again. She goes, hello, And little did I know we'd have this East-West Coast relationship that lasted 18 months. Finally, I realized my phone bill was so big, I figured I better really move out here. And I did. I eventually did. And I had to say goodbye to my sponsor, my 2 ex-wives, my 6 kids, and a lot of people I recovered with. And I came out here and I started all over again. And this man, Mike L., flew out one way, helped me pack. The last van I had left was an old van, and we filled it up with all my belongings. and cross country we went. And we had a commitment in Blythe, California, at Angie D's place, speak at a rehab. So, here I was, I'm being announced 3 days on the road to California, and here's our speaker all the way from New Jersey, Like those people in that rehab went nuts. And I had to get a home group and a sponsor, start all over, recovery-wise. It was hard. It was hard moving. It was hard leaving the roots behind. I cried halfway across the United States, and my friend Mike in recovery he's a nice man. Anyway, I'll back up to New Jersey. I'm one of 6 kids, and in my first bout with alcohol, I was 19 years of age. I wasn't out of high school yet. Because I spent a couple of years in 2nd grade, I kind of liked it there. Not really. I flunked. The thing out there was, at 19 years of age, I go to this party. I'm still in high school. Everybody's 17 and 18. They're out of school. I'm still in high school. And I was doing vodka, shots, and beer, and oh my Lord, my head was spinning around, and I said the first alcoholic prayer I ever said, get me out of this one, I'll never do it again. And 19 years later, I became a town drunk. Not that that's any qualification, but it took 19 years for me to hit my bottom with alcohol, and what happened was I finally graduated high school. I was close to 20, and I met this girl down the shore and down the New Jersey shore. We got married. I got a job with Exxon. I'll blow her anonymity today. I got this job with Exxon, a big oil company, and we settled down, got married, had a house and 4 kids, and 7 years went by, and she decided she wanted out of the marriage. And I was like, wow. She got that 7-year itch, and I'm still drinking, I'm still partying. There were some other things in the marriage that were interfering, and she wanted out. And it was like, part of me was sad, but the alcoholic part of me was, my green light went on. I said, oh boy, now with her out of the way, I can stay out late at night, I can party, I can do what I want to do. And that's what I did. And we decided we would sell a house eventually, so we split it down the middle. She got the inside, I got the outside. I thought that was a pretty good move. I kind of like hung out in a shed in the backyard. I threw the lawnmower and rakes out, and I thought I was contemplating putting in a phone line and a mailbox, Before I can do it, the house was sold, and what happened was eventually we split up, and she took the kids. I thought that was a good idea, and my green lights went on. I said, well, now I can drink the way I want to drink, And I remember coming back home from work one night, and I pulled into one of these disco places, and I popped my head in the door, and I can hear this ba-boom, 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 and I said, all right, this is me. This is like 1969, and disco was hot, and I said, wow, I missed out on this, So I went out and got me some yellow shoes, yellow pants, and a yellow flowered shirt. And I'm going boogieing, and here I am on this disco scene. I get home from work, I splish-splashed, got dressed, picked up a pint, put it in my pocket, got to the parking lot an hour before these disco place opened up, and we'd pass the bottle around, get a little loaded, and go inside, and the strobe light going. I was ready. I would turn into John Travolta overnight. I was ripping. Everything was happening, you know, like Donna Summers was hot and it was pounding and I was out there. And it was on this turf, you know, here I am, 29 years old, I'm hanging out with these 19 and 20-year-olds, you know, and I looked at myself as an old man and, you know, trying to look like I was 20, you know, and I was 29. I had lost a lot of weight. I had a 33-inch waist and long blonde hair, and, you know, and here I was all decked out. It was in that turf I met my second wife-to-be. She was 18, I was almost 30. Bliss, what can I tell you? You know. But she was a mature 18. You know. And that's all I'm going to tell you, no drama. Anyway, for the next few years, she chased me around. I wasn't done partying. Finally, I got in trouble with the law. I would have my car halfway over the side of a bridge, you know, and usually when you do that, you attract somebody's attention, you know, and it was like, you know, I was getting in trouble with the law. I OD'd on a substance and alcohol, and they just suspected alcohol. You know, I have a drug log, but I tell that someplace else. I'm talking about my alcoholism. And besides, the other substances I used them alcoholically, so don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah, I'll make you comfortable. I believe in the traditions. And so what happened was I figured I better settle down, you know. And finally, she caught up to me, and we moved about 5 towns away, and we got married. We had 2 kids. And there I was in my second marriage, 6 kids, settling down. And we got this apartment. In these apartments, there was like 30 units. Most of the people in there were cops in their 30s, all young cops. And we used to drink together. Some people used to run from the cops. I was running with them. You know, it was really weird. And I would get, their wives hated me because they would blame me for what they were doing. And, you know, eventually it was this second wife that called me on my alcoholism. You know, I would call up from the road, and, you know, I became a shot and beer drinker. I didn't go discoing no more because I was a married man. So here I was hanging out in a bar, joined a football pool, drinking shots and beers like the old timers, you know. And spending all my time down there. You know, my wife used to call and say, you know what, maybe I should move your bed down there. You know, I was getting all that kind of stuff, you know. And then finally she read me the riot act, and she said, you do something about your alcoholism or I'm leaving. And I figured, well, I better do something. You know, I didn't want to lose my second marriage. And there was one man in this building who was going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't know it at the time. I used to come home loaded and pull behind his Volkswagen. He had one of these Volkswagen vans with all the slogans on it. You know, easy does it, one day at a time, you know, and then he had that think upside down. He used to come home loaded and say, why the hell did he do that, you know? see, AA was calling me way back then, you know. And this is the guy that took me to my first AA meeting. I said, listen, I got to go to a meeting or she's going to leave, and I want to go like 4 towns away. And he says, no. He said, why would you do that? I said, I don't want nobody to see me. No, he said, everybody thinks that. He said, you go to a meeting in the town you got drunk in, and no one will know you. He lied. I walk into this room like this here, a couple hundred people in that room, about 250 to be exact. And there they all were. Oh, Gil, we've been waiting for you. Where you been? You know, we thought you were dead. And an old timer grabs me. Said, good, we need a coffee maker. Ours relapsed. I was like, oh, okay. I'll make coffee, you know. And those old coffee pots along the wall, have you ever been in kid? That's the ones we did. They had these cloth filters in them. And old Harry used to make me stretch it. He used to make me use the old grinds over again. He said, them drunks will never know the difference. That's what he used to say. I made coffee for 6 months. And I was smoking marijuana to keep the edge off so I could make coffee. I was jonesing, you know. And I got caught outside the kitchen door by an old-timer. "What are you doing? You're not supposed to do that here." I said, "Well, I don't drink." You know, he said, "No good." And I set a new dry date. It's February 1st, 1981 is my new dry date. And I've been coming ever since. And then I washed mugs. They didn't have styrofoam cups. You see, I came into AA when it was old-fashioned. People were kind and gentle. Yeah, they were. And they were stern when they had to be. And they had mugs. And then their commitment was, for 6 months, newcomers had to wash mugs. I had to wash 250 cups. Pain in the ass. And I know what? I got to know everyone personally. You know, some of the mugs were brought by the members of the group, okay, from their house, and a lot of them were from restaurants that went out of business. So really, like, some of them are probably worth money today, you know. And you know, and I got to know each one of those mugs personally. A year went by. I'm not working those steps, and I'm not drinking, and I'm still sober and still in Alcoholics Anonymous. Awesome. And the old-timer said, "Cup washers don't relapse." They're right, they don't. And, you know, they hand-fed me those steps, and they were very gentle and kind, and I like that. About a year and a half into that group, my wife comes in the meeting. Down the stairs she comes, out the back door, Al-Anon. I told her, "You go to AA," you know. She comes to the meeting. I'm like, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I got a problem too." And I said, "Well, that's nice, but this is my meeting, you know." I said, "You ought to have to find some other meetings somewhere." And I kind of like took her to the table, and I said, "You see, here's the meeting list. There are other meetings besides this one, you know, and you have to, you know." And she said, "No, I'm staying." And she did. They told her to join that group, get a sponsor, and clean house. She did. I was the first one to go. There I was, another one. 7 months, 7 years married. She didn't want to be married to me no more. I said, "But I'm getting sober. I'm not drinking no more." She said, "It's not working." I thought I'd become her confidant. All of a sudden I said, "Look, you can't make no major decisions for a year." See, I heard that at a meeting, you know, and I was going to lay this on her. It wasn't working. I was hurt. I was really busted up. My feelings, my emotions, my character defects were killing me. I couldn't believe it. I wound up with an ulcer attack. I lost 40 more pounds, you know, and I was in this hospital. And I was like, wow, what's going on? You know, all I did was put the plug in a jug. You know, why is my life going this way? You know, in a big book it talks about can't imagine life with alcohol, can't imagine life without it. I really couldn't imagine sobriety without my family. I was really hurting. And, you know, and the doctors are in the corner and they're going, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going, oh shit, it's all over, I'm gonna die, you know, like they told Dick, you know. And he said, "No, you just have an ulcer, and if you take care of yourself, you'll be all right." I couldn't handle it no more. I was sleeping on the couch. We were getting a babysitter. She's going to meetings. I'm going to meetings. I'm peeking in the window, seeing if she's at the meeting. I don't know what meeting she's going to. We have no communication. She's starting to run around with guys I recovered with. You know, I'm following her around. I'm tapping the phone. I'm doing this open heart surgery on myself. Actually, they call that stalking today. You go to jail. You do that today. I called my sponsor. I said, "I can't take it no more." He said, "Gil, get the hell out of there." I did. I grabbed my big book, my binky, my blanket. I moved. I said, "The hell with it." I moved into a little room a town away. I didn't want to be away from my kids. One more time, I became a single parent, only sober. I was one town away from my kids. Every Sunday, I picked them up and the other kids. Went to meetings, worked with other alcoholics, what I did. It was hard. I was hurt. I was busted up. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to drink. What a hell of a place to be. And one day, a bunch of alcoholics and some addicts came to my house and said, "We're going on a retreat. You better come with us." I said, "Why?" They said, because they're going to talk about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Give us $10. I did. I gave these guys $10. And up to this mountains, we went to this retreat. You know, here I am, my ass in a paper bag. You know, I don't want to live. I don't want to drink. I was the most uncomfortable person in the rooms. Unhappy, miserable person. 3 years sober. Contemplating suicide. You know, and these guys take me on this retreat. And up there is where we met this guy, Kenny. He was a retreat master. He's a priest, a recovering alcoholic. He's crazy. And he told his story on a Friday night. And I'm sitting there with 100 men, and we're on this retreat. And he's talking about, you know, getting loaded, giving his finger to the nuns. And, you know, and his brother was a state trooper. When his brother came home to visit his father, and they were visiting his father on weekends, the brother with this trooper would get loaded. The priest, Kenny, would get loaded, put his brother's uniform on, get on a motorcycle, pull people over at night. And he'd get arrested. He'd get busted, put in jail. The Monsignor had to come down and bail him out because the cops didn't believe this guy was a priest. He was nuts. Crazy. And the archdiocese didn't know what to do with it. They said, you give recovery retreats. You know, they were afraid to give him anything else to do. And he was awesome. He was my kind of priest. He spit, he cursed, told dirty jokes, and gave mass on Sunday. Looking for one of them kind of priests all my life. I don't know about you. He was awesome. He played an important part in my recovery. And walking through the garden on Saturday, and he took one look at me, and he said, so Gil, what's going on with you? And, you know, I kind of like gave him my case history, you know, the wife and the wife's boyfriend's on the same retreat. Oh, boy. You talk about humbling yourself. You know, we're doing like the Lord's Prayer and this and that, and he's holding my hand, and he's looking at me saying it's going to get better, and I'm like, it already is better, you know. It's like, I humbled myself. Anyway, I told Kenny, I said, you know what, I'm lost. I'm lost spiritually. Where the hell's the spiritual side of this program, I asked him. He looked at me, he said, Gil, there's no spiritual side of the program. I said, yeah, but Father John Doe said. He said, no, don't listen to that guy. He said, there is no spiritual side. The whole program's spiritual. Maybe I can help you out. What step you on? I said, I don't know, pick one out. I mean, you know, I was lost. He threw a cliche at me. That's what it is today, but, you know, 13, 14 years ago, it was no cliche. He said, let me help you out. He said, Gil, the first step is you can't. Second step is he can. And the third step is, why don't you let him? I was like, whoa. You know, I'm coming home from this retreat. I'm all pumped up. I'm going down the freeway. I can't wait to get to my home groups and spread this around. And there I am, raising my hand. I can't, he can, I'm going to let him. And don't you know, one of the big book thumpers grabbed me, you know, the old timer. Hey, come here. I said, well, yeah, what? He said, Gil, let me talk to you. I said, why? What's the matter? Where'd you get that stuff from? I said, up on retreat. He said, Gil, that's the 3 pertinent ideas. I said, it is? He said, yeah, you're an alcoholic in recovery. You can't manage your own life. No human power's gonna, but God could and would if he was sought. I was like, whoa. I heard that how many times? You know, you have to keep things on a Cheerios cornflakes level, because I'm slow. You know, I'm really slow. I was like, wow. I couldn't believe that. I could not believe that. I called up my sponsor I had at that time, Joe, awesome man. He was like the Clancy of our area. He sponsored every other guy in the room, you know. After a while, everybody got to know his business, you know. And when his wife passed away, you know, he hung out for another year. He liked the nude beach in Jersey. He used to go down to nude beach, and every once in a while, someone in the program would see him and bring him back to a meeting. Oh, I hated that. Anyway, he decided to move. I got to tell you this story. Anyway, he decided to move to Florida, and he wound up managing a nudist colony, and when you know it, and he started a meeting. I mean, you really let your shortcomings out at this meeting, let me tell you. Even the big book doesn't have a cover on it. And they only have one slogan, try to identify, don't compare. I mean, that's what he did. This guy, he's nuts. Awesome man. I watched this man work with other alcoholics. I watched him bring families together. Not all of them, just some of them. I wanted, not necessarily what he had, but I wanted to be about that. He was the kind of guy, he didn't want me to walk in front of him or in back of him, just alongside of him. You know, I didn't put him on no pedestal, and he didn't hold me hostage in recovery. He showed me what to do. Only one time he told me what to do a 4-step. That was the only time he told me to do something. That man did. He's awesome. And I called him up and I said, listen, I was on this retreat, and this guy, Father Ken, you know, threw this thing at us, and he says, was it you can, he can, once you? I said, yeah, how the hell you know? He said, oh, Gil's old hat. He told me the same thing. I said, well, that's nice. You know, what am I going to let him do if I let him? He said, Gil, I thought you'd never ask. He said, maybe it's time to do your 4-step. There I was, 3.5 years sober, no 4-step. You know what? That was my time frame. I don't know what your time frame is, but that was my time frame. Whatever your time frame is, get that sponsor, do that step. I said, what do I do? And he knew me. He grew up in an orphanage, this guy. He knew me real good. And he knew I grew up with this punishing God. And he said, you grew up with a punishing God, didn't you? I said, yeah. I hung around with all these Catholic boys, you know. And whatever time we got in trouble or caught stealing or someone broke our bike, we figured it was this God getting even for all the things we've done. And I believed that. Before I drank, when I drank, and when I got sober for a long time. And you know, and I can remember going home and doing like some kind of 3rd-step prayer, and my thing was, you know what? I said, I'm going to go through the rest of the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to this God, and I said, only if I need you will I call on you. And you know, I didn't get an answer because I would have shit. You know, I meant it. You know, I went through this act, you know, and I can remember having a real hard time, and it was an old heroin addict sat in the back of the room of our meeting. Couldn't use heroin no more, it cost too much money. He became a wino. He was 10 years sober. I used to go, Joe, help me with this God thing, will you? He said, well, you having a problem? I said, yeah. He told me, he said, Gil, you know what I did? I figured I better believe in this God they're talking about in Alcoholics Anonymous, just in case he is there, not believe in him, and find out he was there. You know, I was like, wow, I like that backdoor protection, you know, and I went with that. And it was Father Ken on this retreat. He talked about these kids in Sunday school. They were 8, 9 years old, and the Sunday school teacher says, today we're going to draw a picture of God. And these kids looked at one another and said, she's nuts. You know, how are you going to draw a picture of God? And all of a sudden this girl started going, got her crayons out and her pencil. They ran over to Janie, what are you doing? She said, oh, I'm going to draw a picture of God. All the kids said, that's impossible. No one knows what he looks like. She said, they're going to know now. And I was like, whoa. And went with that. You having a hard time with this thing? Piece of cake. I acted as if. I went with blind faith. I said, what do I do? He said, I want you to write down everything you ever did to everybody else, how you felt about that, and everything everybody else ever did to you, and how you felt about that. I said, okay. I didn't know that okay was going to take me 5 months. There I was, doing this thing, you know, like an autobiography. I didn't do no columns yet. He wanted me to get out the deep, dark secrets that Dick was talking about. He wanted me to get out all this garbage, all this crap I carried around all my life so that I can leave room for some new information when I did my columns, when I looked at my fears, my resentments, my dishonesty, my anger. That's what he made me do. 6 months went by, up on another retreat. Here we are. My sponsor and this little priest that weighed 98 pounds. He was a little guy. He needed to sit down on a crate if he was speaking here. He was small. And I loved him. And here I am in this room, you know, and I'm opening up my gut and I'm saying, look at this, look at all this stuff, all my life, you know, like, what is this? And they were like, yeah, me too. You know, it's like, wow. I said, I was molested by a priest when I was 8 years old in a hospital. He's touching me, wants me to do it. I'm telling my parents, they don't believe me. No one believed me. There was incest in my family. These guys are going, yeah, me too. Wow. It's like, wow, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe trust began with another alcoholic. I'm telling these guys all these things. They're telling me, you know, and I got a comfort because I figured, you know what, they're telling me all about them too, you know. So if they got to say something on me, I got this on them, you know, and I went with that. I took that with me. You know, they squeal on me, I got this on you, and they never did. It was these men that took me to my true nature before I can get to my exact nature. It was these men. And I can see everything in there: shame, blame, guilt, abandonment, rejection, illness on top of illness, 3 years sober, you name it, I had it. I was ready to check myself out without a drink. I took a look at that. I took a look at my emotional imbalance, 3 years sober. They were ready to carry me away to a place like Camarillo. And I had to make a choice. Do you want to go to a mental institution, or do you want to work this program? You know, they suggested I work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I waited till it was mandatory. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I felt good about this fifth step. I don't know about anybody else. I believe this God was looking out for me all my life. He loves me. I should have been dead. He spared my ass. I know he did. As I look back, one of my exact natures of my wrongs was the biggest one. I did not trust this God, you know, and I threw up a fake higher power in that third step. And that's what he told me to do. Put a God you want to put up there, see if you can get to know him, is what he said to me, my sponsor. And I said, I kind of like that. I'm not powerless. I'm not powerless over picking out my higher power. You know, when it comes to that 11th step, he turns real for me. You know, and I skipped them 6 and 7 steps. Skipped them for a lot of years. I looked at that 6th step, I said, what in order? I'm not going through with this. I believe what they told me at the men's stag. God gave me them defects, take them back, I don't want them. You know, I'm done. 7-step prayer, hello, I'm on 8. Didn't work for me. Didn't work for me. When I look in the big book that was printed in 1939, there's only a couple of paragraphs on the 6th and 7th step. Them first 100 alcoholics and the ones that came after them, they did not have steps and traditions in their long form for 12 years. They were about to kill one another. They were going nuts. Groups were breaking up. Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, felt the need to write the 12 and 12 for people like me who were having problems other than alcohol. And that book fits me. And I can remember opening up that 12 and 12, and it says right there, this is the step that separates the men from the boys. Whoa. Or the girls from the women, if you have it. I don't like leaving anybody out, you know. I was like, wow. And I met some guys, you know, where it says in a big book, we're approached by those in whom some problems have been solved. Thank God I met some people. Came to me and said, Gil, we write on all the steps. You do? I said, yeah. That sounds like fun. Made me get a pen, pad, and a dictionary, these guys, and start with 1. Why? Good. That's where you start. Look up powerlessness. Look up unmanageability. You know, look up your will, my will. Look up sanity, insanity, all the way down, all in $5 words. I had definitions for them. I started to get a little perspective where I came from and where I got to go. That 6 and 7 step, they're the 2 most misworked steps in recovery for me. But you know what? I see it in others. I see it in others. What I see in someone else, I know I'm capable of doing or having or being. That's the big awareness. And I remember this guy saying, Gil, what works for your alcoholism will work for what's left. Because I started to realize alcohol, just a symptom of my problem. I had problems long before I picked up my first drink. I was something ready to happen before I picked up my first drink. Here I am in recovery thinking I'm well. I became that ultimate 3-stepper. I'm powerless, I'm sorry, I'll help somebody. And there were some more steps to do. You know how to get my ass into gear. These guys told me, your liabilities are the very things you need for the rest of the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, really? Yep. Everything you need for the rest of the steps are your liabilities. I mean, everybody has a few. I had a few assets. I was starting to like this God, this fake God. I had some friends in recovery, and I kind of liked that. And that was about it. I don't think very many people have a lot of assets in early recovery. I mean, that's what I had. That's what I went with. You know, and I said to these guys, what do I do? And they said, what works for your alcoholism works for what's left. And I happen to think, Bill Wilson writes, his character defects ambushed him in alcoholism. And I was like, wow, I believe that. Here I am, 3, 4, 5 years sober, and I'm just as nuts. Without it, the only thing missing was the cocktail. That's the only thing was missing. And I was like, wow, what do I do? And the guy says, go in your 4-step. Look for some glaring defects, because they're in there. I said, they are? He said, yeah. He said, you're not going to fix something you can't spot. Let's start with the glaring ones. So he went through my 4-step because I didn't burn it. This is another confidant I had in recovery, because my other sponsors was out in Florida, nudist colony. And we went over this thing. And he gave me a few defects he saw in me. Because he knew me. I was pissed off, but I got over it. I said, what do I do? He said, get a piece of paper and let's put the glaring defects down on one side. We did. We put all these glaring defects down. I said, okay, what do I do now? He said, let's try and find the opposites of those defects. Some of them are hard. And we did. We found some opposites of these defects. I said, what do I do now? He said, try practice being those opposites. I was like, whoa. Bill writes, we have to go into a whole new journey of open-mindedness in the 6 and 7 step. This guy made me write the definition of a character defect, a program one. And the definition is, it's anything that stands in my way being useful to me, to another human being, and to my higher power. Think about that. That's pretty wide range. That's like, whoa. No wonder I said, what in order? I can't go through with this. And it's like, whoa. 6 and 7, unbelievable. I saw a list. There are 100 known defects to a human being with negative feelings and emotions. Actually, there are more. I don't want to scare you. I don't want to scare me. I only see 30 on my list. Means you guys got the other 70. And when your 70 generates my 30, I got to look at me. Program says, I don't look at you, I look at me. What I see in you, I have myself. Because if you spot it, you got it. That's the way it works around here. I learned that a long time ago. And I put a lot of emphasis on the 2 miswork steps in recovery because I feel they're important. And I always say the 6th step is, I don't do what I want to do. The 7th step is, I do what I don't want to do. See that? It's a lot of wisdom there. If you didn't get that, get the tape from Mike. I always push the tape guy with that. I take a character defect, false label it, dress it up, make believe I don't have it, rationalize, justify behind the behavior of it. Now it's a shortcoming. So if 6 don't get me, 7's waiting. Drunk trap. Bill put a drunk trap in there. And that's what it is. It's a drunk trap. He wasn't stupid. He had 12 years to know what he had to do with the alcoholics that were already trying to get sober. If I hold on to a character defect, it becomes a shortcoming. And that's exactly what a shortcoming is. Character defects, I choose them. I'm like this little boy with this little red wagon. I'm going through recovery, and when I want one of them defects, I just pull it out, and 7 says, you sure you want to use that? Remember the last time? I don't think, where it says they're removed, I don't think they're removed. My alcoholism's not gone. Why will my defects be gone? They get arrested, just like my alcoholism. That's the whole new journey of open-mindedness. And I think, well, how does my alcoholism get arrested? And then I got to journey that through and relate it to a defect. Sometimes just one. Pride. Jealousy. Take it through them steps. I can, he can, I got to let him. I'm having a problem with it. God doesn't remove anything from me unless I take up some of his qualities. And when I get an idea what some of them are, being caring, loving, kind, generous, thoughtful. Oh, and they are the opposites of my defects. And when I practice them, then I develop new character traits. I don't need my old ones. It's a lifetime job. It don't go away. I have distortions in my thinking, hidden flaws in my character. Every time I think I got that slate clean, bingo, something else comes up. I get involved with other human beings, and there they are. They bring these things to me. Why do you do this? It's like, what? And that's why I need other alcoholics in my life. In the 8th and 9th step, I made a list. I went back to my 4th step. There they were. They were in there. All these people I had harmed, including myself. Put you on top of that list, is what he told me. And I did. I don't know about anybody else, but I had to come in terms with my past so I can live in the now. Plain and simple. Come in terms with my past so I can live in the now. And that's the beginning of a lifetime job. There are still people on my list, but I'm willing. And you know what? In 16 and a half years, these people pop up out of nowhere. Oh, Jesus, this guy's on my list. And you know, only because I've been willing, God puts these people in my life. I didn't avoid anything. You know, I didn't avoid anything. You know, and they say after 9, the promises kick in. You know, they materialize if you work for them. I got 11 out of 12, I guess. You know, it's not too bad. I'm working on that, you know, financial one. One time in my life, my financial slate was clean. I still have fear of the mailbox. I still owe some people money for my wreckage of sobriety. I'm not proud of that. I have fear of the mailbox. I don't see I don't see, you know, who the letter's to. I look to see who it's from, you know. And you know what? I'm working on that. I'm working on that today. You know, and it brings you to 10. Step 10's a backup step. It's not a cover-up step. You know, it's a backup step. I used it for a cover-up step. Used to go around the rooms doing anything I want to do and using alcoholism as an excuse for my behavior. That's bullshit. If my behavior is unacceptable today, it's exactly what it is. It's unacceptable. You know, am I being the best alcoholic I can be? Am I doing the right things for the right reasons? Am I taking a commitment for the right reasons? You know, I have to remember that. And I don't do an inventory every day. I have a 10-step prayer made up. You could use it if you want. Where I say, God, tomorrow, I hope people are as nice to me as I was to them today. When I go to bed, I think about, was I nice to people? And you know what? At least it gives me the thought. You know, there are some days I've gone through and I said, oh my God, I can't believe I said what I said. And I'd call that person up and I'd say, listen, if I hurt your feelings. And you know, and sometimes I do. I don't want to use the last part of that 10-step, but it's there. It's there. And it brings me, and I need the 10-step. I need to know I got things right with man and God and myself. Because it brings me to 11. There's the ultimate of steps. I throw fake higher power up there in 11. Now they want to know, do you want to improve some kind of contact with this power? And you know, my answer is yeah, because too many things have happened to me, too many wonderful things. And I go, wow, there's more? And I say, yeah, I do. You know, and I need that 10-step to clear my mind. You know, like when you got your bills, some of your bills paid, and your room's clean, or your house apartment's clean, you know, you feel good about yourself. You know, you talk to your sponsees, you talk to your sponsor, you know, and everything's cool, and it's like you feel good about yourself, you know. And you don't need all this stuff going on in your head while you want to do an 11-step. Through prayer and meditation, you can do this. And you know, I use candle meditation. You know, I light a candle, I go in a dark room, and I try to clear my mind. And I can see the flames, the yellows, the blues, the reds, you know. And now I put a face on my higher power. I could see him. He's staring at this alcoholic. He's looking at me. Tears are coming down his eyes. He's smiling. He approves of this alcoholic. And I say, wow. You know what, God? All my life I'm asking you, do this for me. Move me over here. If I only had that, I say, wow, man, I never asked what I could do for you today. Right then and there. My will's not there. What can I do for you today? I thank him. I thank him for keeping me sober. I thank him for the things he's taken away through those steps, Alcoholics Anonymous. I thank him for the things he's given me. And then I thank him for what's left. That's what humbles me. Nobody hit my ass with no well one. There's no role model for a recovering alcoholic. Look in the big book. It's got a picture that says you look like this, say this, do that. Maybe Clancy. Now, I just want to see if you're awake. No. I say, wow, you did all this for me today. What can I do for you? Those answers come if your own house is in order. That's what the big book says. And I say somewhat in order because that's where I'm at. I tell myself today, you know, I'm not where I want to be. But I know I'm still in a good place. I say, you did all this for me. You know, in 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, try to carry this message today to alcoholics. And I try to practice these principles in all my affairs. 12-step is awesome, man. It covers a lot. It talks about finances. It talks about marriage. It talks about being single. It talks about sex. It talks about giving back to Alcoholics Anonymous what was freely given to you. It talks about home groups. It's just a whole chapter in a big book on it. It's awesome, man. Beautiful. Nice place to come to. You know, the obsession and the compulsion to drink's been arrested as a result of the steps. Alcoholics Anonymous. Not that I don't think about drinking from time to time. It looks good. I've seen the relapser here. I don't like to, but I think maybe it could be me. Process of forgiveness took place through the steps. And the definition is it's an act that takes an enormous amount of spiritual strength. Where the hell would I get an enormous amount of spiritual strength? Through those weaknesses I exposed in them steps, along with a few assets, give me spiritual. People were starting to forgive me. I was starting to forgive them. Forgiveness fosters humility. I need a degree of humility. I'm just as powerless over alcoholism the day I came in. I'm more capable of drinking today because I'm not sober out of fear. I'm sober out of joy. I'm not sure if that's good for me, so I keep coming. And the humility brings on gratitude. No one stays here that doesn't have gratitude. I don't talk about it. I put it into action. Be a service to my home group. Work with other alcoholics. That's what I do. Gratitude brings on the emotional balance that I need. 3 years sober, I was ready to go out of here. And emotional balance brings on spiritual progress, and that is the touchstone of recovery for me today. Spiritual progress, because it doesn't have any boundaries. It's the only thing I know it doesn't have any boundaries. A man or a woman can take the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and go beyond your wildest dreams without the spaceship Enterprise. Bill Wilson says be rocketed into a fourth dimension. It's awesome. Don't miss that. And I ran out of time, and I believe in closing on time. And I always close with this. One day I walked into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and one day I became a small part of that room. Not a big part, just a small part. One day I had to get a sponsor, and then one day I became one. One day I did a fifth step with a human being, and one day a human being did a fifth step with me. Awesome. Don't miss that. No money. Nothing. Property, prestige, money, nothing tops that. Nothing. To watch another alcoholic achieve sobriety so that they can work with another alcoholic. That's awesome. I saw that with my own eyes. Beautiful. What a gift. It's precious. I treat it tender today. So if you're new and you're a newcomer and you have no idea where you are, recovery lies within the steps. And that's where it lies. The steps keep me sober, and the traditions keep me married. I believe that. Again, I want to thank the group for having me. I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Gil.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app, to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.